What's up, gang? Cousin Justin here. In a world where everybody is fighting for a little bit of your attention, I just wanted to appreciate you giving me some of yours. Enjoy the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. What's up, dude?
What's going on, man? How are you today?
And another day in the life trying to figure out how to get more leads into an agency, but that's not our conversation for today. Today is about becoming a better engineer, pursuing mastery, being curious. I'm stoked for you to show me Code Dojo, dude. I think the rest of the world is also really hungry for the future of education. What do you have for me today?
Yeah, so this is my proof of concept open source project, Code Dojo. You know I've been using it every day for the last month. This is where I noticed that what is happening is there's a bit of a skill atrophy when we're hanging out and not coding daily. We're using agents for everything. But what if we flip that on its head and used agents to train us? And I've lovingly called this Code Dojo because it uses a very martial arts style to teach programming languages. However, I do believe this could be used for more than just programming languages, but for those of us that want to learn and practice. So it's not just for learning from the beginning, it's also about practice and maintaining your deep fluency over time as you learn and retain the information.
Let me ask you a question. This is more for like views and likes. What's the point, man? Why am I going to continue to learn this stuff if AI is going to take my job anyway?
Well, if you think AI is going to take your job, you've probably already lost.
You already lost the game.
So what do they say? Whether you do or you don't, if you don't believe you can, you've already lost, right?
Totally.
Like you already can't. I don't think this is going to be the case. I've said this many times. I think that coding will always be a part of your interview at the very least. So you don't want to be scrambling to learn all your coding. So let's just pretend AI wasn't even a thing. I think that it's good to practice your coding and your code solving skills on a regular basis. Most of us don't do that. We get wrapped up in our work and you scramble right before you have to go into a code interview. Even in the age of AI, I think there's hand coding. I think Anthropic is still requiring hand coding as a part of their interview because it goes back to this same idea that it is okay to pass on good people. It is not okay to hire the wrong person. From a business perspective, they are okay with the false negative, but they're not okay with the false positive. So if you can't code and they pass on you and you were going to be a great hire, it's okay to do that because the cost of being wrong is so much greater. So hand coding, I think, still stands in the way where a person who can hand code really well is going to be crazy effective with AI. So I think this will always at least be part of your interview. I think if you're using AI agents, you are still going to be reviewing and reading code a lot. And heck, you still want to be able to go in and listen, if you spent years learning this skill, you don't want to let it go by the wayside. It's still worth having. It's got space in your brain. You got room for more. So keep going.
I was also having this conversation a little bit earlier today about, what does it actually mean to be full stack today? You and I see a lot of resumes and a lot of claims of full stack. And what you sometimes see is that that's like very vertical and not very broad. And to me, when I think of somebody full stack, it means like you can figure out any problem. You know front end, back end, but you also know DevOps, you also know security, you also know a little bit of hardware, you also know how, just your DNS works or something like that. And you can troubleshoot email or, when you're full stack, you're really like so how do you pursue just being as well-rounded of a technologist as possible? And so for me, I think like this tool is supplemental to the passion of being a technologist. And I haven't really found that there's like another tool out there that is really helping people take their foundation of knowledge or no knowledge at all. Like a real experiment is like, can Justin learn how to code with Code Dojo? The answer hopefully is yes. And that's also why we've kind of removed some of the complexity. You could talk a little bit about the web application that we're releasing right now, which like relieves me from having to use GitHub proper and my terminal or my IDE or whatever. Like I could just run at this. But I think this also is the curiosity of just being a general technologist and broadening your skills without always having a project to work on. A lot of us, while we have that passion, you're waiting for work to come to you to continue to learn. And that's not necessarily the way of the world right now. You need to increase your surface area for luck. So instead of, waiting for a fish to bite the line, this is an opportunity to go and learn all of your curiosities in a free way for right now. And so I find that to be a really interesting value proposition of this.
Yeah, it's a daily practice. That's what I tell people. It's a daily practice. It very much follows the martial arts way. And sometimes, like after using it the last month, especially to brush up on Ruby as we increase our Ruby on Rails kind of coverage, I wanted to kind of bring myself back because I was very much in TypeScript mode after the last few years. You will find that sometimes you're like, okay, I know how to solve, but through that repetition of solving, it sticks. And that's really important. And I think that humans are really good at that. It really follows this very modern learning method is what we've learned about learning is working in very short sessions, maybe 30-minute sessions, 20 to 30-minute sessions, but doing things over and over so that you get practice. But you don't want to do this thing which is like theory overload, where if you're reading a programming language book, you might like blow through the whole book and then be like, wait, I feel like I didn't learn anything because you did an overload. So you need a way to practice. And this is using Claude Code for this is so much better than going to the book, copying the exercises, trying to complete them. It's like having a personalized tutor. And so there is going to be a web version that will not allow, that you don't need to run the language on your computer. You don't need to have anything installed, nothing like that. Because I know that there's a demand for folks like yourself to kind of go from 0 to 1 with their programming language. This version right here is really good if you're already a programmer and you're trying to learn a new language. Like maybe you didn't learn, maybe all these years you've gotten by without properly learning SQL. Well, now this is going to teach you all sorts of crazy things with SQL. And you're going to use AI to tutor you. And I think this is really the future of education. It's really personalized.
Let me ask you one other question before we get into a demo. I'm like excited to see it. One of the challenges that I have seen of really talented engineers right now is they take the corpus of knowledge that they have. They use AI to move into new languages, new frameworks, new complexity, and use AI to kind of translate their knowledge into problem solving in different areas without ever learning. They're not actually retaining any of like the new problem that they're solving. They're just relying on the old knowledge. And so for me, this kind of blends the gap for those that are not just trying to complete the job. This is truly learning the new way. It's one thing to be effective and take like your old basis of knowledge and solve new problems. It's another thing to solve new problems and have retained that knowledge. So now you're expanding your information. So I'm wondering, what's your perspective and where are we going to start seeing this in the professional job market, where folks are taking, their React experience, their TypeScript experience, whatever, and just completing Ruby on Rails problems, but never actually learning Ruby on Rails?
I think that's going to be a lot more common than we'd like to believe. And I don't necessarily think it's such a big problem. I have seen a few good engineers, like I think Lee Robinson did this recently, like built something in Rust, but admitted did not know a lot of Rust. I did this recently with OCR. I think being a great programmer is probably first and foremost the most important thing. So what I'm excited about with this tool, and this is going to be a part of the web version, this is something that I will continue to expand the open source version for people. Like right now, it's just a proof of concept, which is like being able to do a full computer science curriculum or a product development curriculum and develop that and have a tutor walk you through different things so you can learn more broadly what you're doing. Because I think these broad concepts of things like software architecture and design patterns are more important than the language. And so it's probably good to learn one programming language really, really well, or two, or maybe three, or maybe you do one a year. That's the old Andy Hunt kind of recommendation. And I've always kind of adhered to that, like just learning a little bit about a new programming language, just getting exposure to it every year. But I think that increasingly it will be common. And I don't think that a strong engineer it would be very detrimental. You may get certain subtle bugs. I mean, the danger of not learning the programming language is there becomes these known unknowns. Like, because I've worked in JavaScript for a very long time, I know a lot of the quirks that come up. Because I didn't work in Ruby for a ton, like and we came back to it, there were things in Code Dojo that by not writing it, that I was being exposed to. For example, doing math between an integer and a float, when you want a float, having to convert one side of the equation to a float. That was something that I learned from Code Dojo. It doesn't really exist that way. That problem doesn't exist in JavaScript, so I wouldn't know. Host language solves for some things and not another. You may find that AI is filling in gaps for you and maybe makes mistakes that you're not totally aware of. It is really still very prudent. If you're going to be like, hey, I'm taking a job where we're writing a lot of C++, I'm going to use Code Dojo to learn C++. Even if I'm pushing features with AI and going really fast, I still think it's important to learn the language that you're going to be working in on that job. It's going to be common that people don't, though. That's my prediction.
Let's get into it, dude. I haven't seen this work in a little bit of time, and maybe you'll give us a little teaser at the end of your web version.
Yeah, it's super easy. Code Dojo Core. Go to GitHub. This is the POC. You can really install it with just one command. So you hop over to your terminal, and I've made a demos directory here. I'm going to set this up. It's putting Code Dojo together. Go into Code Dojo. So now I have this one. If I go and go into, you can see that it's actually fairly straightforward. It sets up some directories here, skills and a workspace directory where you'll be working. And there's Claude and a README. A Claude.md file tells Claude what to do as your tutor. So I was let's just, again, remarkably simple. Let's run Claude code in here. And Claude code may read, write. Yes, you want it to be able to read and write. And then you start with either the I want to or train. And you could just talk to it conversationally. You don't have to put it in planning mode or anything like that. So you could just say, I want to learn JavaScript. Let's just start there. Because, everybody wants to learn JavaScript these days. Now, in order for it to test your code, you're going to want to have whatever language you use installed on your computer so that it can actually run Node or something like that. It's going to, I'm going to allow access to history because it does need access to all of these directories because it works on file system. It's storing history as files so that as you come back every day, it knows where you've been. And one of the first things it's going to do when I say I want to learn JavaScript is it's going to give me a quick assessment. I think it's a 3-question assessment to see where you're at initially. So it's actually perfectly okay to be a total beginner. And you can even tell it as it gives you the first problem, like, I don't really know what I'm doing. The goal, though, is for you to kind of try to get yourself through. So it's building the program right now, and here we go.
Does everybody have the same experience?
Everybody will have roughly the same experience. Now, it's not going to be perfect because this is just Claude code. In the web version, so when Claude's building the curriculum here, because AI is non-deterministic, I am going to expect that there might be some minor differences, and you're not going to get the same problems, that's for sure. You're going to, get all sorts of crazy, it's going to be all different. And you can actually see here, look, it's already put together the first assessment. So in your current workspace, you get a problem.md, and it's write a function. This is the first one, right? It's write a function called count words that takes a string and returns an object where each key is a word from the string, lowercase. Each value is how many times that word appears. So words are separated by spaces, ignore punctuation, and empty strings should return an empty object. So these are the rules. This is your first solution that you're going to write, and it'll give you a solution.js file here, and it even kind of wrote that initial function. So you can actually just kind of open it up, and you're going to be initially getting your text, right? And so you may, we might break this into an array, right? So we might do like text. We're going to split it up into, we'll split on spaces, right? So we'll get an array of words. And then we might go ahead and turn this into an object, right? Because it wants us to build an object with each word. It's a key value. Now let's just go into like you, Justin. What if you came in here and you were like, I don't even know where to begin?
Well, that's what I would say. And my hope would be like, okay, we're going to do like an intro to what is a function.
So this is great. You can actually, in those cases, what you could say, now if you're semi-familiar with the programming language, you might do something like this, where I would write, you actually can ask questions in comments. So I might be like, question is split the function to break an array into, break a string into an array of words. And the goal though is to keep going. So don't get discouraged. Keep going. So like that's one of the best things about this is normally you might get stuck. What this is encouraging you to do is just kind of use what you know and kind of figure it out. You know what I mean? So now I might do something like this. Text array dot reduce. Let's just turn it into a we'll have our accumulator. So I kind of I'm going to go ahead and do this because I know some of the things, but we're gonna have the word here. Now I'll give you another great example where I am like let's do this, right? Let's do dots text. The first thing I'm going to do is dot replace. I'll show you this. One thing that I struggle with in JavaScript or whatever is I want to replace symbols, exclamation points, or I want to, if it doesn't match A to Z, like I want to basically get rid of symbols. So a great question that I would say is question, what is the regex to match anything not a letter and remove, right? Just letting it know that's what I'm looking to do, right? Like I'm just like not good at regular expressions. And so I wanted to do this because I'm trying to, but I'm showing it that I understand the logic that I'm trying to do. So it's going to do assessment. So let's just like watch this for another section here, right? So let's just go into the next piece here. So now let's just assume I have an array of words. They're broken out and I got rid of all of the symbols, right? And it also has to do lowercase too, I believe, right? So let's do this to lowercase, right? So we're going to do that. And it asked it to be keyed with a count. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to return an object. And it's going to have ... accumulator, right? The accumulator. Again, I'm just showing that's a spread operator. Don't worry about what I'm doing so far. The key is going to be the word. And this is going to be accumulator word. So we may want to do like current count or something like that. There's probably a few ways to do this, but it's const current count is accumulator. I want to just show you guys what it outputs anyway. Otherwise, do 0, right? This is like totally very, very different than how I would do this in Ruby. It's so funny that now I'm like doing this and it's like basically current count plus 1. So this is going to return the object and I'm going to be returning this because it's turning this into an object to return text array, and I'm going to start with an empty object. Great. Now, let's save this. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say, come back over to my Claude Code over here, and I'm going to say, okay, can you check my solution? And it's going to find my questions. So it's going to, in my comment, but basically I did the best I could, and let's just watch what it outputs. You know what? The regex is wrong. I'll let you know right now. The goal is to kind of show here that And to be honest, this is one of those things I probably would have looked up anyway. But the goal of this is to not be going back to the browser, not be going back. The AI is going to coach you right here, so you stay in the problem, and it forces you to learn this. Watch, it's going to note, it's going to read my solution. Here we go. Results: 2 out of 4 passing. Right, we got some of them. Question: what is the regex to match not a letter and remove? The issue is without square brackets. I messed it up by a little bit here. Look at that. Of course. So now I'm going to go in here and I can type my square. I can correct it, right? But again, by actually having to go in here and correct it, it's forcing that fix, right? So it gives me this. You could see here this brackets with the up caret. A to Z character class matching any letter A through Z. And then negated class matching that's not A to Z. And then the \s exception if you want to keep spaces for splitting. So take a look at that right there. So these are the little, but here's the cool thing. This is also like what I kind of look for in an interview. Like, I'll tell you how many times I've interviewed people with a question like this, and they don't know the regex off the top of their head. And it's like, do I go to the browser? You could burn a lot of time like figuring that out, but I would still say this person's probably still, just because you forgot the exact regex for this thing, the fact that you reached for it is the important thing. And then look at the observations, what I liked. You reach for reduce naturally, that's a good instinct. The double question mark for the default value is clean. Spread plus computed property is idiomatic. Overall structure is functional and readable. 2 issues, the regex syntax and the empty string edge case returns, this is right. You're counting an empty string as a word. You want to fix those 2 things and resubmit. So one of the things that we forgot about is the empty string as a word, and we can resubmit this piece. So like we could actually come back and do a quick check here. So let's just take a look at that edge case, right? This is a great example, right? See how it's showing it right here? The empty string counts the empty string as 1. What we really want to do is make sure that if there's an empty string passed, we could do this a few ways. What I would personally do is I would check each word here. This kind of would deal with the issue. Is we could do an early return here. We could do if word equals 0, return accumulator. We could just early bail out. So this basically is going to have us bail out and basically say if there's some kind of a string in here that's no good, just bail out early and instead of don't count it effectively. So that'll deal with like any kind of issue. The other way we could do this too is we could actually up here before we even go into our reducer, we could check for this like specific edge case, but this will handle any kind of extraneous things that are ongoing. We could also trim the word, but I think this will get us through. Great. Give me a check now. Let it give a check and bada bing. So you're seeing this from assessment 1 that it's running node, it's doing its check. Again, the web version, this is all now automatic. So I've created a much more automated manage. So here's the cool thing. We've passed all of our tests. Nice fix. Regex corrected. Empty words filtered. It's going to now issue assessment number 2. And so again, we'll go into assessment number 2. But let's pause because really you don't need to watch me solve leak code problems. Once I'm done with the assessment, it's going to give me a belt ranking. And then my new command is going to be, I want to train JavaScript. And it's going to take where I've been and start giving me training over and over. But you could kind of see how it works.
That's dope. So like these first couple of questions that you have to problem solve, this is how the AI is understanding what level you should begin your training at. So if I came in and I just like totally botched this and it's like, no, you're not passing, it's going to know, okay, I have to do introduction to JavaScript. Or it's like, boom, you passed it on first try. It's like, yo, you're clearly a green belt. You're starting your training at a green belt, and now you want to pass that over several months.
It's also not just it's also how you solve it. It's not just if you solve it. It's art.
Sure.
Like, for example, using idiomatic JavaScript, right? There are every language has ways that it wants you to solve different problems. So if you're solving a problem, like when I was using, I did this with Common Lisp, which was a fun video, and it said, and when I did it with Ruby, it goes, very clear that you're a you probably come from JavaScript, because the way that I was trying to solve it, it could tell. So it was like, even though you have a good background and you know how to solve these problems from a conceptual standpoint, you don't necessarily have the background in this. So that may still, I wouldn't get hung up on the initial ranking too. These are things that I'm looking at for Code Dojo in the future, is how to like more accurately come up with the rankings. I think for every language, I want to come up with actually a consistent set of belt paths so that everybody's not getting again, this is a very simple proof of concept that I've been using for Code Dojo Web. I'm looking to release that into the world a little bit more full featured and with a little bit more consistency than we get here, which is wonderful. But once again, I like this tool myself because I'm also using my IDE, and as I was telling you, I think it is important to use your computer and like be able to use your local tools and all that stuff.
Remember this, if you really want it to be like martial arts, you must begin at a white belt. Regardless of your experience with any other martial art, you must begin as a white belt. You may
Correct.
accelerate through your belt system. You may be able to test out of your current belt and into a new tier, but maybe that is an answer. Everybody begins as a white belt. And if you want to bang on this thing all day long, you can move to, your belt standard as fast as you want. But everybody begins as a white belt, and you have to prove it to the AI coach that you need to level up. So maybe we do keep it totally pure to martial arts and keep everybody from the brilliant basics at the very, very bottom and find your way towards your pursuit of mastery.
Yeah, well, and maybe it's an assessment, like initially your
Sure.
assessment, basically it moves you through each assessment at each belt, because my thinking was you came from writing tons of JavaScript and now you're jumping into Code Dojo. Like, you've already done Taekwondo for 10 years, you go into a new gym, you keep your belt still. So I wanted to be able to figure out like, oh, do you still have that? What's your initial belt level? And I thought that it gives people the right challenge for where they're at.
Well, listen, if you did Taekwondo for 10 years and you want to go learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you begin
start
as a
over.
white belt.
You begin, right. A new language always starts you somewhere fresh. So again, these are things that as the proof of concept for me was like, how did this feel? How great was this? And after using this for a month, I'm like totally hooked, totally psyched on this. And so that's where I was like, okay, I got to build the version on the web. We got to have regular progress for people. They got to be able to we got to do more. And so I'm really excited. Future state is like being able to define your own curriculums for anything you want to learn. So this is like just for code, but I was like, what if I wanted to go back and like learn algebra properly? As AI as a coach is incredible because it's really giving me targeted feedback, and I love the learn while doing style where I stay in the problem and I'm not jumping to Stack Overflow, I'm not jumping to an AI. I'm staying here. I'm doing my best. It's forcing me to work through it without kind of these jumps and changes in the flow, because it keeps that flow state.
Dude, we'll put the we'll put the repo in the show notes. We'll do another recording when we release the web version. But thanks for a great stand up. This is dope.
Excited, man. Talk soon.